What is poppin' internet? Welcome to another episode of Creative Differences. I'm Dallas, and I wish Sherman Showcase gave us a full season this year.
I'm Gabby, and I second that statement.
And I'm Demi, and welcome to the second episode of our year in review. Today, we will be talking about our favorite television shows of 2020. Luckily, we were in a quarantine, so we had a lot of time to watch a lot of shows.
That is true. That is true. Colin is not here because he's off
Because
somewhere
he's
being a
whack.
host.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you know, that too.
I mean, he decided to bail on on these episodes, just like he did on yesterday's episode.
Before we get into all these shows, please like and subscribe because it would be nice to come out of this quarantine with more followers than we went in with it.
I also want to start this off by saying time is a construct. Anyway,
You right.
so we're going to give you the explanation again as to how this works. We are going to go through our top 10 shows. We're going to go in an order, probably Dallas, Gabby, then me. And what's going to happen is that if somebody has something on their list that is higher on somebody else's list, they're going to call skip, and we're going to wait until it's at the highest position on somebody else's list. I hope that that wasn't too confusing, but you guys will understand it as the episode goes along.
Yes. For example, if Gabby has P Valley at number 10 on her list and Demi has it at number 6, Demi will say skip and we'll wait till we get to Demi's number 6.
Yes.
That's true.
Before we continue,
Wait, what's P Valley? What's that?
I figured you wouldn't know. That's why I just threw it out there because it wasn't going to spoil anybody's list.
we knew it wasn't going to be on anybody's.
I think it's a show on Stars about strippers.
Yes.
Okay.
So, let's start as we always do every year. Honorable mentions. Dallas, do you have any?
I have 5. I watch a lot of TV, so I'm just going to list them off because I ain't got time to get into all of them. Honorable mentions are Animaniacs, The Haunting of Bly Manor, Harley Quinn, The Umbrella Academy, and Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Gabby, do you have any?
Yes, I do. They are Sherman's Showcase, Brooklyn
Nice.
Nine-Nine, Rick and Morty, and What We Do in the Shadows. Sorry.
I'm very surprised that Brooklyn Nine-Nine isn't on your actual top 10.
It was very close.
I was kind of
But
banking
no
on being able to
cigars.
talk about it with you when you had it on your list, but no, we're just
I'm
going to
so
miss it. It's
sorry.
okay. It's fine.
All right, cool. And then I have 6 on my honorable mentions. Usually I do 5, but several of these shows actually got canceled, so I wanted to make sure I mentioned them. But my honorable mentions list is Prop Culture on Disney Plus, Little Fires Everywhere on Hulu, Stateless on Netflix, High Fidelity on Hulu, Motherland Fort Salem on Freeform, and The Magicians, which just ended on Sci-Fi.
Yay.
All right.
So let's get this started, shall we? Let's go with our number 10 spot. Dallas, what's at the bottom of your list?
Number 10 for me is Avenue 5 on HBO.
Oh.
Have either of you seen that show?
Is
No,
it like
continue.
a puppet show?
A puppet show?
Oh,
No.
no.
No, that's
No,
the
I
space
haven't.
show, isn't it? Or
Yes,
the
it's a
boat
space show.
show? Yeah.
It's like a space boat. It's a cruise, but in space because it's the future.
Oh, okay. No, I haven't heard of this.
Yeah. Colin and I watched it together. This is why I need Colin, and he's off being a host, so he's not here to talk about it. But it's fine. The show was created by Armando Iannucci. Iannucci? I don't know. It's Italian. He created Veep, and he made that David Copperfield movie that came out or didn't come out. I don't know. COVID. It stars Hugh Laurie, Josh Gad, Susie Nakamura, Zach Woods, etc., etc.
What?
Yeah, it's a great show. You'd probably love it.
Sounds like a great cast.
It really is. And the summary is the troubled crew of Avenue 5, a space cruise ship filled with spoiled, rich, snotty space tourists, must try and keep everyone calm after their ship gets thrown off course into space and ends up needing. Okay, I'm not going to say all that. That's too spoilery. But basically, the story is a series of bad things happening to make situations go from inconvenient to straight up life threatening.
That sounds like. Have you guys ever watched Veep?
I haven't, but I mean, it makes sense. It's the same guy who made it.
Yeah. So Veep would be like, so it's politics, right? So instead of life threatening, it's like political career threatening. And it's like things will go from like mildly not that bad to horrible really
Yeah,
quickly.
that's
Like
this.
yeah, the remember what happened with Trump and the Four Seasons landscaping?
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
would have been something that would have happened on Veep.
that's lovely.
So Dallas, why did you choose this show to be on your list?
Because it's just so hilarious. It's honestly, I feel like if it wasn't so funny, it'd be super stressful because of the amount of bad things that happen. Oh, also, to me, Himesh Patel is in this show. I don't know if I told
Aw,
you that.
Himesh. I do love
Yeah.
Himesh.
And I think I was watching it. Oh, I don't know if it was around the same time that yesterday was out because I remember seeing him and I was like, that's that guy Demi was talking about. But he's in it. He's being super charming and funny. He plays like a comedian who does comedy on the cruise.
Yes.
But after a certain point, it's just a very bleak situation. So it's like, maybe we don't need your comedy right now, Himesh. We might be stuck in space for the rest of our lives.
Oh
Oh
no.
Lord.
But Hugh Laurie is hilariously sarcastic,
Is he the
and
captain?
he is. And it's funny. He's using his English accent, his natural accent. And it's funny because I was re-listening to our old podcast, and I got to our Batman one where I said he should be Alfred, and I saw this right after that, but it just makes me want that even more because him being just so British and sarcastic and like dry is perfect.
Ugh, you got to see a bit of he had a sketch show with Stephen Fry in England, and it was called A Bit of Fry and Laurie, and you'll get more
Nice.
of that on that show. Yeah.
I could get down with that. It also has Karen, whose name is literally Karen, and she like kind of takes over the ship's like passengers in this weird like Lord of the Flies type. She like appoints herself the leader. She's great. And Josh Gad he's one of my favorite parts because he's so delightfully stupid in the show. Like he's the rich guy who owns the cruise ship but really knows nothing, and everything kind of falls on his assistant Iris, who's played by Susie Nakamura, and she's awesome.
Oh,
But yeah, I think my favorite thing about it is the character interactions and the dialogue because it's just a bunch of sarcastic jerks being mean to each other.
yep. That sounds like Veep AF.
Oh, also, who else is in it is you know Teddy from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Gabby?
Yes, I love him.
Yes, he's in this show too.
Yes. Okay, now I need to really watch this show.
You're gonna like it. But yeah, for the general audience, I recommend it if you're into comedies with like mean people in bad situations, like Always Sunny or Archer or something like that, or it's a development type, or maybe Veep because it's the same guy who made that. But yeah, HBO, check it out.
Gabby, what's your number 10?
Yay. Okay, so my number 10 is Woke.
Oh, Skip,
Yay.
Hey,
Perfect.
we got one early.
I figured that would happen.
Yes.
that might not happen too often today, though.
That's true.
So my number 10 is Blood of Zeus,
Ooh,
which is a
Ooh.
Netflix show. A commoner living in ancient Greece, Heron discovers his true heritage as a son of Zeus and his purpose to save the world from a demonic army. I really love this show. It stars Derek Phillips, Jason O'Mara, Jessica Henwick, Claudia Christian, Elias Tufexis. I hope I pronounced his last name correctly. Matthew Mercer. I freaking love Matthew Mercer. And it was created by Charlie and Vlas Parlapenides. I hope I pronounced the last name correctly as well. It was a recent addition to Netflix, and it was awesome. The animation house that does it is Powerhouse Animations, and I love their work. They did the animation for Castlevania, and Castlevania is also another one of my favorite shows. So it was really awesome. Once I saw the trailer and I saw the animation style, I was like, oh, I absolutely have to watch this. I'm also a huge fan of Greek mythology.
they also did Ses Manos.
They did, and now I have to watch Seis Manos just because I just love their animation.
Yes, watch it. It's great.
Yeah, so I'm a huge fan of their art. I love the character designs of this show as well as Castlevania. But yeah, I really like the characters. I thought the action was really cool. They got picked up for season 2, so I cannot wait to see where season 2 goes, and I hope that they get a bigger budget because as much as I love the animation, there were a couple of things that kind of were bugging me. But yeah, I really loved it. It was so cool. And also, I think it's the first thing I've ever watched with Matthew Mercer as a voice actor.
Who was he playing?
Hermes.
Oh, okay. Cool. Kayla and I just
Yeah.
watched the show in its entirety like 2 days ago.
Yeah, it's a really easy show to watch because it's so short. I watched it with a friend. I had been waiting for her to watch it, and I was like, "Hey, you wanna watch an episode today?" And she was like, "Yeah, sure." And we watched an episode, and then it finished, and we were like, let's do a second one." Yeah. And we watched the second one, and then we ended up finishing the season. So
Yeah, it's like 8 episodes. They're like half an hour. You can knock it out with no problem.
knocks out super quickly, which is a plus. But yeah, it's so much fun. It's kind of my thing. Definitely more for adults because it is gruesome.
It is interesting because oh, it's super gruesome, but just like Seis Manos, Powerhouse likes to do that. Shout out to Brad Graber who made that show and is a producer on this one.
And a personal friend of the show. You get liked on Twitter once, guys. I'm just
I mean,
kidding.
hey, we'll get there.
It was multiple tweets.
True. But
Ooh.
also, one of the things that Kayla liked about it is that Zeus is finally being held accountable for being a hoe.
Oh, good. I love that.
That was also one of my favorite things was that, like, yeah, Zeus is a hoe, and I I don't wanna give too much away,
Yeah, we don't want to
but
give too much away.
I was definitely rooting for Hera the entire season.
Okay, so I have a
Good.
problem with that, but
Listen, do I think she was like, her methodology was correct? No, but am I mad at her about it? It's really hard to be because Zeus is a dick.
yeah, but like he's not the main character. She's attacking someone who's not Zeus,
That's
trying to
fair.
ruin this boy's life.
That's fair.
Like
She was
But at
like
the
Hera
that
s
didn't
with
do nothing to her.
everybody though. Like,
That's the
like I
thing.
said,
Hera is a villain. Like Zeus is a hoe, but Hera is a villain.
she's a villain,
I
but
mean, she's
also she
yeah.
wasn't wrong about Zeus.
No, but just go at him. Leave Hera out of it.
I mean, she
He
was
didn't do nothing to
going
her.
at him by going after his son.
Wait,
See, that's messed up.
Heron? Is he like named after Hera?
I think there's a
I feel
like
like it's a Hercules type of thing, probably.
Okay, cool.
probably
Just checking. Yeah.
Hera was wilding.
Hera was wildin', but I was like, "Yes, you're wrong," but also at the same time, I can't be mad because you're right.
It's like your emotions are valid. Your methods are a little off.
Yeah, I'm like, "Your methods
Yeah.
are so off," but you're
But
like,
yeah,
yeah, I too would be upset.
It's like you're
definitely.
not wrong, but you're an asshole? Question mark.
Uh, well,
Yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky to pin down. But
it's a there's nuance in that. There's nuance in that debacle.
yeah,
Yeah, so you're not wrong. You're an asshole.
goodness,
That's
such
the
a debacle.
nuance.
I just want to say before we move off of Blood of Zeus, I really like Kofi, and I think his name
Yeah.
is Evios, the guy he hangs out with.
Yes. Yeah.
Evios was like the only real comedic relief we got.
Is it Elias or Evios?
Evios, I think, because I think the old guy also has a name that starts with an E, so it gets kind of confusing. And then one of the actors has a name that starts with an E like that too.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. The guy who plays Kofi is on Castlevania,
Oh,
so it
nice.
was really cool hearing him in another one of the animated shows.
I was excited to hear Jason O'Mara because he plays Batman in so many DC animated movies.
I was happy to hear Jessica Henwick,
Yeah, that
outside
was
of,
dope.
like, Iron Fist, playing Alexia, and like I said earlier, Matthew Mercer, because all I've seen him do is, D&D stuff, and also, Mamie Goomer, who is Meryl Streep's daughter, is on the show.
Nice.
So, yeah, that's my number 10, Blood of Zeus. Let's push on to number 9. Dallas, who you got? Or what you
Num-
got, I guess.
Number 9 is Mythic Quest Raven's Banquet
Skip
on. Okay, who I figure.
Hey, all
on
the
Apple
skips are
Plus.
gonna I feel like most of the skips are gonna be on you guys' end.
Probably,
Probably.
yeah. We do have similar interests.
Okay, moving on, Gabby.
Oh, my number 9 is Solar Opposites on Hulu.
You've, brought this up before on a quarantine watch, I believe.
I have a lot of these were on my quarantine
Yo,
watch.
same. I just like kind of copied my notes from Quarantine Watch and adjusted them
Mhm.
a bit.
Yeah, me too. I was like, have I watched a lot of TV? And then I went on there and I was like, oh, yes, I have. um, okay. So, Solar Opposites, I went on and on about it at length on a quarantine watch. But just to reiterate, it's a show on Hulu about some aliens that came to Earth and they're basically waiting for this little pupa to hatch. And when it does, it's going to make Earth into a replica of their planet, and everybody from their planet is going to come and inhabit the Earth. Um,
Sounds intense.
it's intense, but actually it's just like a quirky, like silly, not as depressing version of Rick and Morty. The aliens are there, so you've got like the technology aspect, but it's like a cute family versus like a recovering alcoholics family or like an active alcoholics family, and like the way that affects and like everybody's psyche. It's a lot less dark than Rick and Morty. It's done in the same animation style as Rick and Morty, and it has a lot of the same voice actors as Rick and Morty.
Yeah, it looked very similar from the trailer, but also, like you said, not as bleak.
It's not as bleak. There is a bleak streak through it, but it's like, what's going on in the wall versus what's actually going on in the main plot. So like there's a B plot that has a very dark aspect to it, but it's almost a joke at the same time versus like the Rick and Morty stuff. It's like, oh, this is dark. Like
Yes, very.
like Pickle Rick was great, but when you look at what Pickle Rick means or like the metaphor that it is, it's just like, ugh.
Yikes.
Like, oh god. Versus like solar opposites, when you examine, there's not really too much depressing about it. There's not really like much really any trauma that they're talking about or trying to work through any episodes. It's just this alien family that's getting into hijinks, which is probably why I prefer it to Rick and Morty.
That's fair.
And it's great. Highly recommend it.
Was it on
Solar
Hulu, you
opposites.
said?
It's on Hulu. There's 8 20-minute episodes,
Oh,
one
nice.
season.
Nicely done. I guess it means it's my turn again. Number 9, funnily enough, is Castlevania, also on Netflix and once again animated by Powerhouse Animation.
You have a theme going so far.
I do. When Lisa Tepes, beloved wife of Vlad Tepes, aka Dracula, is accused of witchcraft and burned at the stake by an overzealous bishop, Dracula declares war on the people of Wallachia and unleashes an army of murderous demonic creatures from hell. Luckily, Trevor Belmont, last survivor of the Belmont clan, a disgraced family known for hunting all kinds of monsters, is still in town and agrees to take the fight to the Lord of Vampires. The show stars Richard Armitage as Trevor Belmont, James Callis as Alucard, Alejandro Reynoso as Sypha. I love Sypha. Theo James. I hope I'm pronouncing this guy's right, but it is Editokumbo McCormick, who plays Isaac, and he's also he plays Kofi on Blood of Zeus, as we were
Very
just
nice.
saying. Jamie Murray and Graham McTavish.
Graham McTavish?
Yes, he plays Dracula, and the show was created and written by Warren Ellis. This is one of my favorite animated shows. I think this past year was the 3rd season, and I cannot wait for the 4th season that is coming in this year, 2021. It is just fantastic. Again, love the animation style. The fighting is incredible on this show. I love it so much. This show is not for kids. As shown by season 3, episode 9, which is nothing but sex and fighting.
Ooh.
Yes. That was a choice. But yeah, just a really good show, really great characters. I love Trevor Belmont and Alucard and Sypha. I also love Hector, who is played by Theo James. And then Jamie Murray is one of my favorite actresses. I love whenever she comes onto any type of TV show. So it's great. Fun fact, Emily Swallow, who plays the armorer on The Mandalorian, plays Lisa Tepes on Castlevania.
Hmm.
So yeah, I am a fan of supernatural things. I love vampires and, ghosts and ghouls, I guess, depending. This is far closer to horror than most things that I would watch because the demons on this show are legitimately scary looking.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you have like some supernatural interest, I got some stuff I can recommend to you, but I don't think you'd like most of it.
Yeah, the monsters on the show are pretty grotesque. That's just this animation studio style, but it's so good, and I love watching it so much. Since first season came out, because first season was only 4 episodes, and it felt that was a setup more than anything else. It was like you watch 4 episodes, and you end those 4 episodes, and you're like, wait, the story just started. Why are we stopping?
Oh, wow.
The show's definitely gotten really good. Season 2 is amazing. Season 3 is pretty good. I don't think it's as good as season 2, but I think that's partially because they split up our main trio. But I think that the slowdown was probably kind of necessary, and to see how these characters are sort of dealing after the events of season 2. But yeah, Castlevania, I love it. It's on Netflix, all 3 seasons. If you are interested in watching, they are releasing an art book for it sometime this year, and I'm so excited because I'm definitely going to buy it. And it's also based off of a video game, in case anybody was not aware of that fact.
I've heard of it, never played it.
That's Castlevania.
Dope, dope, dope.
All right, number 8 on the list, guys.
Number 8 for me is Fargo on FX and Hulu.
Oh,
Nice.
wow.
Fargo is created by Noah Hawley, who created Legion, and he directed and wrote Lucy in the Sky, which I did not see.
He's also currently creating a show for Alien.
He is. Yeah, he's an interesting dude. He likes the weird stuff. If anyone has seen Legion, you know that.
We do the weird stuff. Sorry.
Fargo is dialed back a bit. It stars Chris Rock, Jesse Buckley, Jason Schwartzman, Ben Whishaw, and a bunch of other people. So Fargo's an anthology series. Every season is its own story. And I've only seen, this is the fourth season that I'm talking about, came out this year. I've only seen this one because when I was watching trailers, I saw Chris Rock and a bunch of black gangsters. So I saw the trailer. I was like, what's Chris Rock doing playing a gangster? I don't know. I'm intrigued. And then the title said Fargo. And I was like, oh my God, that's Fargo. So I came in ready to watch it. It came out and it's great. It has a lot of moving parts, like from the jump. It's one of those shows that you can't really watch if you're like playing on your phone because you look up and miss something. That happened to me a lot because there's like different crime families, the black people, the Italian people, the Irish people, the Jewish people, the Fargo people,
The Minnesotans.
the Minnesotans. Yes, this one's actually in Kansas, which was I thought it would be in Minnesota. It's not.
What?
Yeah, right. It's in Kansas City,
Wow.
but whatever. But they have some real interesting ones. Like one of my favorite characters is an Irish dude who they call Rabbi Milligan because he was raised by the Jewish crime family because they would do this thing where they would trade their firstborn sons to the other crime family.
What?
It's wild. Yeah, like the Irish dudes and the Jewish dudes traded their
That's
sons. So this Irish kid
entirely wild.
is extremely wild and it happens a few times. So Chris Rock is raising this Italian boy and the Italians are raising Chris Rock's son. It's crazy.
What?
It's super wild. But
Do they ever give their kids back?
I mean
Oh my God. So there's this
some
little
stuff
black
happens.
boy that was raised by Italians?
Yes, I mean like he wasn't like a baby. So like he was old enough when he was like he knows his parents and his family and stuff like that. But now he lives with the Italians.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah. But Chris Rock plays the drama very well, but also managed to still be funny because he's Chris Rock.
Yeah, that's the what do you call it? That's the thing about comedians is like people don't realize how difficult comedy is. So when they go
Yeah.
to like I don't know why people are shocked that comedians do drama really well. A lot of them come out of drama like that's the easiest job I've ever had.
Right, because I've heard the like interviews where they're like, "Oh yeah, being funny is very difficult, but like just acting is, I can do that." But
Yeah.
I'm sure he enjoyed the change of pace. The show is very character driven. There's so many characters. Gideon from Scott Pilgrim
Oh,
is the leader of the Italian mob.
Jason Schwartzman.
Jason Schwartzman is the leader. His name is Giusto Fata, and it's like like yeah, you're the leader of the mob, but like you're Jason Schwartzman. I can't really be like intimidated by you. But he has a big brother in the show named Gaetano, and he's like old country Italy, like crazy. He has the best crazy eyes I've ever seen. The actor's name is Salvatore Esposito,
Okay.
and if anyone ever makes a live action Wario, he's the guy because he's like big and stocky, and he has a mustache, and he looks insane. Yeah, there's just so many. Like all the families have their own stories. There's this redheaded nurse who I can't tell you too much about, but she has a lot going on. I'll just leave it at that because anything else would be a spoiler. One last thing I want to mention is the actress's name is Angie White, and she plays like the strong black mom of this like small family who's kind of under the thumb of Chris Rock's mob. She has this teenage daughter, and her daughter's trying to like get into a bunch of stuff and like know too much. She's in grown folks' business basically. And the mom has this scene where she is talking to her and she's like, this is none of your business. You're a kid. We're adults. You need to stay in your lane. And the daughter is like standing up and trying to get, indignant. And the mom says, "You best sit down and finish your meal. I know I didn't raise a child who would throw such histrionics at my dinner table under my roof." And the dad, who's this white dude, he says, "What your mother's trying to say." And then she turns to him and she says, "Don't what your mother's trying to say her. She hears me. And if she don't, she damn well hears my tone. Sit down." And I was like, yo, we need more black moms like that on TV.
Oh God.
But yeah, aside from that scene, my favorite thing about this show is it's an interesting depiction of black people in 1950 in a place of power. Like the source of power is crime and that kind of sucks, but it's refreshing because it's not just like oppression and racism.
Yeah.
There is racism, but if you can tolerate racism and you like crime stories, I recommend it. It's on FX and Hulu.
Dope.
Very nice.
Gabby, number 8.
Oh, okay. My number 8 is The Great, which stars Elle Fanning and Nicholas Hoult, and it is on Hulu, created by Tony McNamara, who is best known for co-writing the movie The Favorite, which won a Best Actress Oscar a couple years ago and got him a Best Original Screenplay nomination. And it basically is like a similar tone to The Favorite. The Favorite kind of like made fun of royalty and like people. And I talked about it earlier in a quarantine watch as well. The Favorite tells the story of, or it's a
The Great.
satirical comedic drama about the rise of Catherine the Great from outsider to the longest reigning female ruler in Russia's history. And the series is fictionalized, and it starts with Catherine in her youth, played by Elle Fanning, and her marriage to Emperor Peter III, who is played by Nicholas Hoult. And it's hilarious. And my favorite part about it is it's people in like 17th century clothing talking like regular people.
Oh, they speak like modern English.
Yeah, basically, but they're in English accents, even though it's supposed to be Russia. They're in
That's
English
interesting.
accents, and it's like all of the brutality of like what you would imagine like parts of Russia to have been like, at that, especially like the royalty. But also there's court, so it's like lavishness mixed with like brutality and just comedy. And it's and like the best part is like, so Elle Fanning's character comes in and she's very like naive, and she's like, oh my god, I'm about to get married to a prince, or like to an emperor, and it's gonna be amazing and la la la. And then like Nicholas Holt's character is just so awful, and she's like immediately just realizes she hates him. And if you know anything about the history, like Catherine is called Catherine the Great because she helped make Russia like pretty great at the time. Like she took care of the poor, she made sure people were educated, and it all started with when she did a coup against her husband and basically had him executed. And at that point in time in Russia, it wasn't there wasn't like a line of succession. It's if there's an empress, that empress is now in charge. So this is kind of covering the season 1 is covering her deciding she hates him, realizing she has ideas, and starting to like design a coup against him. And it's great. It's hilarious. It kind of makes fun of like like how ostentatious and ridiculous rich people are. And it makes like, even though it's a fictionalized version of history, it makes history like more relatable, I guess, or more like more, yeah, more relatable. And the costumes, oh my god, amazing. Just like 17th century stuff is just really fun to look at, and there was just so much to the clothes, for like, well, any class to be honest, but particularly the upper class's clothes was just like ridiculous and a lot of fun to look at. So, and the wigs and everything. So, there's the comedy that's like pretty solid and great, and then there was also just like the period piece of it all. Yeah, that's why I really liked The Great this year, and I highly recommend it.
Nice, nice, nice.
Very cool. All right, so my number 8 is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., with its final 7th season.
That makes sense.
Phil Coulson heads an elite team of fellow agents with the organization known as Strategic Homeland Intervention Enforcement and Logistics Division, or SHIELD, as they investigate strange occurrences around the globe. Its members, each of whom bring a specialty to the group, work with Coulson to protect those who cannot protect themselves from extraordinary and inconceivable threats. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was created by Joss Whedon, Jed Whedon, and Marissa Tangerowen. Like I said, this was Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s final season. I have watched the show every single season that it has aired. This was definitely one of its better seasons. It was a very fun journey through time with our agents one last time. And yeah, they brought in Agent Sousa from Agent Carter and gave him a good ending, thankfully, because the MCU didn't give a crap that they just completely ruined the ending that he had.
It'd be like that sometimes.
I hate it. What am I watching all these shows for? But yeah, it was cool. It was really sad as the show, like, was beginning. I realized I wasn't quite ready for Agents of Shield to end yet because it's been a part of my life for so long. It's been around since shortly after the first Avengers movie came out. It was the first Marvel TV series, and it was basically the last one to get canceled. Well, I mean, unless you count Hellstrom, but it was like the last one with the Marvel logo on it to get canceled. So it was the longest running one, which is pretty cool considering a lot of people tried to give up on it during the first season.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah, so to stick it out was pretty rewarding in and of itself. It's been great watching these characters grow over the past 7 seasons. My second favorite MCU character is from this show, Daisy Johnson, played by Chloe Bennett. Marvel, please, for the love of God, bring some of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. back into the MCU. There are a few characters I can see just leaving their endings the way that they are because thankfully Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did the thing where they didn't end everything tragically. People actually got to have happy endings. And that's what I like, especially in this day and age where people just want to, be like sad and edgy all the time for their TV series. Like sometimes I just want a happy ending, guys. Come on.
I feel that.
I cried during the last episode. They got me.
They got you.
They got me, man.
Got
It
the
was
seven
just
thug tears.
it was one particular storyline, and it was just something that I did not anticipate, but it was the most perfect thing to do for 2 of the characters in particular, especially after 7 seasons of basically, like, having them suffer. But yeah, it's been a fun ride. Clark Gregg, Ming-Na Wen, Ian DeCasticker, Chloe Bennet, Elizabeth Hentridge, Henry Simmons, Natalia Cordova-Buckley, Jeff Ward, and everybody else who's been involved. Brett Dalton, for instance, who played Grant Ward. Like, it's been great watching them for the last 7 years, and, I'm gonna miss them so much. Even though Ian DeCasticker was barely on the 7th season, but they made up for it with their explanation at the end of the season, and it was a truly phenomenal explanation. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., one of my favorite shows. I think I described it once as being, like, comfort food of shows. It's not like the Netflix shows where there's, like, this, like, almost this emphasis on it being like a really hardcore drama, like really, really good show, like something like freaking great. It's just a good show to just sit down and watch and relax and turn your brain off and just have fun for a little while.
Yeah, sometimes you need that.
Yeah. So, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., one of my favorite shows of the past 7 years. It is number 8 on my favorite shows of 2020, and it will be missed, as will its characters.
It's a good send off.
Thank you. Yes, I had to make sure it stayed on my list. I didn't want it to be on the honorable mentions list like I did for The Magicians.
I feel you.
All right, number 7. Dallas, what do you have?
Number 7 is Archer, also on FX and Hulu. So Archer is an interesting case because it's on its 11th season.
Yeah, it's been on there for a very long time.
A very long time. And the last few seasons have all been out of continuity.
What?
At the end of like season, let's say 6 or 7, something like that, Archer goes into a coma. So the next few
Oh.
seasons take place in his head in different
What?
situations. Like I think they go to space. There's one that's like in the 20s where all the characters are now in the 20s. There's one that's like called Danger Island, and it's like it's the same cast, but they're playing different characters. So it kind of turns into an anthology for a few
That's kinda
seasons.
cool.
Wow.
It was very interesting.
I like
Um,
that. They were probably
yeah,
bored and they were like, how can we make it so we could do whatever we want every season?
I honestly think they're like, well, let's do that. So this season they brought him out of the coma finally.
What? Wow.
And oh, sorry, let me credit where credit's due. Archer's created by Adam Reed, who created C Lab 2021, which is a super old Adult Swim show that probably none of us watched because it was like when Adult Swim first came out and it wasn't for us.
So we were children.
Yes. And it stars H. John Benjamin, Aisha Tyler, Jessica Walter, Chris Parnell, a bunch of other people. And the summary is covert black ops and espionage take a backseat to zany personalities and the relationships between secret agents and drones. So Archer's finally out of the coma. We're back to the main continuity.
Okay.
And the way that they handle it is so perfect because this is like the dynamic of this group is I'm realizing something about myself. Like the mean spirit is like Mythic Quest, Arrested Development, Avenue 5, like Something about that is hilarious to me. And I don't know what that says about me as a person, but we can move past that.
Probably because you get along with your friends pretty well, so you want to know what the other side's about. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Like, what is it like when friends are just roasting each other nonstop?
Yeah. Or like Ronnie, remember Ronnie?
Oh,
He
yes, I
sent
do.
me he sent me a meme once that was like, "Do you ever have a friend that you just hate?" And he was like, "This is how I feel about a lot of my friends."
I
And I
could
was like,
definitely
"Oh
see him
god."
doing that. That sounds like him. But yeah, so Archer comes out of the coma and he realizes that things have progressed. Without him, all the characters progress in very interesting ways without changing them too much. Like Cyril was just the desk job guy, and now he's ripped and he's like the main field agent.
What?
Yeah, Lana, who's played by Aisha Tyler, has, moved on with her life. He was in a coma for a while. I think like all of the seasons are like a year. So he's been in a coma for
Several
quite some time.
years. What
And he
about
comes
his
back and
baby,
he's
his
like,
child, his person?
okay, so you know about the kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they still have a kid. And the kid comes up in like a big plot point in one of the episodes, but I don't want to spoil too much. But
Okay.
it's very interesting. But it's just like they didn't miss a step because I stopped watching a few seasons ago. I think during like the Danger Island or one of them, I was like, I just want them to go back to what they were doing because this was a cool like experiment, but it doesn't always work depending on what you do with the characters.
Yeah.
But it's back to being one of my favorite shows. And they had really great guest stars. Like they had Jamie Lee Curtis on the season, Simon Pegg, Nicole Byer, Pamela Adlon. Like they were just bringing lots of people in, and it was so much fun.
That's great.
Like I said, this was season 11, so if you like it, then you probably already know you like it. If you're into all those mean spirited comedies I mentioned earlier, I recommend it. It's gonna take some catching up, and that's Archer.
Gabby, number 7.
Hi, my number 7 is I'll Be Gone in the Dark. It is a HBO miniseries about Michelle McNamara and the eventual capture of the Golden State Killer.
That sounds like Gabby.
Yup. It's basically like an extension of her book, but it includes his capture, which the book did not cover because it was published before the capture. It's kind of a bummer that Michelle McNamara is no longer with us, but at least like this documentary kind of taught you about what kind of person she was and how much she cared about making sure that people were held accountable for their crimes, particularly when the victim list was as vast and as like awful as the Golden State Killers list, and just like the awfulness of, I don't know any other words, but just like the horror of his crimes and what he put people through. It was a lot of her writing and her reputation that renewed interest in the case. And it was a lot of her sleuthing that made people realize, like investigators realized that maybe she was onto something when she thought that this same person was the one that was harming people in NorCal and SoCal and started harming people or like and killing people across the state. It's a very in-depth look on this case. There are some interviews with people that were victimized by this person, people that survived. It also goes through her writing process as well. And there's interviews with Patton Oswalt, who's her husband. Is really good documentary. Very sad, but also kind of hopeful because it kind of teaches you that as long as people are tenacious, justice will eventually be served. And I'm not like, I don't really particularly like our justice system most of the time. But when it comes to cases like this, I'm like, alrighty, this is why we have a justice system. Generally speaking, I feel like it's poorly designed and it affects the wrong people way more unfairly than others. But
That's true.
in this case, I'm like, I'm glad there is a justice system. And I'm glad that like somebody came along to connect all the dots. Obviously, we can't give all the credit to Michelle McNamara, but I'm just glad that like there was renewed interest so that this person could be caught because they caused so much mayhem and so much like awfulness throughout the state. Anyway, it's a I believe 6-episode miniseries on HBO.
That was a dark turn for the podcast.
I'm so Sorry.
Talking about fun animated comedies and switching
True
for
crime
murder.
documentaries.
Seriously.
Can we please
Prolific
bring us
serial
back into the
killers.
light?
So my number 7 is Sex Education on Netflix.
Oh, I forgot about that show.
Oh, nice.
A teenage boy with a sex therapist mother teams up with a high school classmate to set up an underground sex therapy clinic at school. The show was created by Laurie Nunn and it stars Asa Butterfield, Gillian Anderson, Shudi Gatwa, Emma Mackey, Connor Swindells, Kedar Williams Sterling, Amy Lou Wood, and a lot of other people. But it mostly follows Asa Butterfield because he's playing Otis, who's the main character.
To me, I have a question.
Yeah.
I think I might have asked you this at the beginning of Quarantine Watch, episode 1. Have you seen Charlie Bartlett?
No, I have not.
Okay, because when
But
I
I
talked
when
about it,
I saw the show for the first time, I was like, "Oh, it's kinda like Charlie Bartlett, but with sex advice."
yeah, I think you'd like it. I think you'd like Charlie Bartlett.
I've always been meaning to watch it, and I've never have. But yeah, Sex Education was probably the first TV show that I watched all year, to be honest. It came out in early January, and it's still on my list, surprisingly. But I'm always very entertained by Sex Education. I love the way that they do what they do. I love the way that they write. I love the way that they bring in these different like sexual situations and manage to teach on these sexual situations and shed light on certain ones. I'm a huge fan of the characters, especially Maeve Wiley, who is played by Emma Mackey. She is fantastic on the show, little Margot Robbie lookalike. And
Yeah.
it's only certain pictures though. It's not always. It's only typically when she's blonde and if she's got her hair swept in a certain way. Otherwise, she does not look like Margot Robbie. But yeah, the show is fantastic. This year was this or last year technically was the second season, and I look forward to a third season. I think they're getting a third season. I hope they are because it ended on a cliffhanger, and I want to know where that goes, even if I don't ship the ship in question. But that's just me because I'm really bad at shipping canon things. So
Yeah, what are those called? Crack ships? When it's just like,
crack ships, rare pairs, those are where I go. Or like ships that actually do happen but just aren't meant to be. I ship the tragic stuff for some weird reason. So
yeah.
like in the first season, Maeve dated Jackson Marchetti, who is played by Kedar Williams Sterling, and I'm still holding out hope for those two. They are fantastic. If they had just communicated with one another better, which is hard to do when you're a high schooler, but if they had communicated better, their relationship would have worked out. Maybe one day, because I don't like the idea of her and Otis. It's so boring. But I love the idea of this kind of punk girl ending up with the popular school jock slash theater guy now.
Wait, Otis, is that the main kid?
Otis is the main kid, yeah.
That's so interesting to me because whenever I hear Otis, I immediately think of an old black man.
No,
Like,
it is not this time
And I
around.
this
think
young
of a
English
cat.
boy. You think of a cat?
Or is it a dog? Milo and Otis?
I don't know.
I
That
know who
one
you're
of them?
talking about. Yeah.
But yeah, I never thought of like a young English boy.
Isn't Otis the name of the dog in Garfield?
I think his name is Opie?
Odie.
Odie.
Odie, that's right. But yeah, that's Sex Education. That's number 7 on my list, even though it's been out for like a year at this point.
Very nice.
So obviously that tells you how good of a show it is that it lasted this long on my list.
Yeah, it's true. That's pre-COVID.
Yeah, that was life was still normal. All right, guys,
Uh,
number 6 on your list. What you got, Dallas?
Number 6 is The Good Lord Bird on Showtime.
Oh, I never got to watch it. Never got around to it.
Yes, I saw the trailer for it and I was like, I'm gonna get me a free trial because I gotta watch that.
Yeah, I want to because David and Rafa.
Yes. So it's created by Ethan Hawke and Mark Richard. It stars Ethan Hawke, Joshua Caleb Johnson, David Diggs, Raphael Casal, a bunch of other people. The summary is an enslaved boy becomes a member of John Brown's family of abolitionist soldiers and finds himself in the 1859 raid at Harper's Ferry. Backstory for me personally. I don't know how true it is, but when I was doing a family history project when I was like 9, my mom told me that we have an ancestor who was an abolitionist named John Brown.
What?
So it's possible this is my great 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 grandfather.
That's so
Hysterical.
awesome.
That would be wild. But
Yeah.
shout out to Ethan Hawke because he goes all out for this performance. Ethan Hawke's been acting for like, 100 years.
Yep.
And he's always been good, but this is the first time that he really, really like wowed me. Like he really went into the character. He has the crazy eyes. He's shouting Bible verses at racist people and shooting them. It's so much fun. But yeah, I could watch Ethan Hawke kill white racists all day.
Very nice.
And it's like one of the things I really love is that it's refreshing to see someone take religious fanaticism and use it for a positive instead of a negative. Because the only time you ever hear is like, you know, the Crusades, Manifest Destiny. All of the people saying like, oh yeah, we can justify our bad actions by saying God told me to do it,
Yeah.
or this is our divine right. But on this side, we have a family who's like, we are all God's children. So how can you justify having some of us enslaved? Like, how can you think that we're not all equal in God's eyes? And I'm like, yeah. But there's also an interesting quote that a woman says to John Brown because, you know, he's very big on his faith. And a woman says, I instinctively distrust men who know so well what God wants them to do because I notice it seems to always coincide with their own desires.
Oh.
And I'm like,
Hmm.
that is an interesting quote. And it comes
And
from
ooh,
and it comes from Frederick Douglass's side chick
Of
because
course.
David plays a very weird version of Frederick Douglass.
does he?
Yes. You know, I don't know a whole lot about Frederick Douglass, but I gotta assume some liberties were taken with this portrayal.
I feel like probably.
David was amazing, but there's this weird. He's in a throuple,
Oh god.
and man, I hate that word, but it's the best one for this situation. Like he has his wife, who is, you know, strong black woman, of course, and then he has this, I think, German or French, some vaguely European white woman who's like his side chick, but like everyone's aware of the situation and they're kind of cool with it, and she's just there.
That sounds like the olden days.
That's cool, Fred. You know, more power to you. But she was overstepping some lines. One of my favorite things is obviously seeing David and Rafa again. They don't share a lot of screen time, which very much disappointed me
Oh.
because Frederick Douglass is he's like about the cause, but he ain't really about that action. Rafa, on the other hand, is about that action.
Sometimes you need a crazy white boy in the mix.
You do. And he plays basically like a scoundrel who's very funny but down for the cause. So he's like at 1,800 miles from blind spotting.
Oh Lord.
Sounds about correct.
And he made the show so much more fun for me. They were my main reasons for watching it, but also I'm always down to watch some slave owners get killed, especially by someone who might be related to me. So yeah, if you can
Yeah.
tolerate slavery stories for the sake of watching racists die, I recommend it. It's on Showtime.
Hey,
Get you a free trial if you ain't got it.
Gabby,
Gabby.
you're
Oh, I'm so sorry. I
you're
forget
number
it's my
6.
turn.
You forget every
Okay,
time.
going back to the bleak and
Oh, here we go.
depressing.
Dear
I'm just
God.
kidding. We're going to a torrid love story. I'm
Oh,
talking
cool.
about normal people on the Hulus.
The Hulu's.
On the Hulus.
On the Hulus. Okay, so Normal People is an Irish drama series based on the 2018 novel of the same name by Sally Rooney. The series follows the relationship between Marianne Sheridan and Connell Waldron as they navigate adulthood from their final days in secondary school to their undergraduate years at Trinity College. So that sounds really boring, but it's actually just like a torrid love story. And what I liked about it, at first I was like, what's wrong with Connell? Why can't he grow up? And then you just kind of realize Connell just has a lot of social anxiety and he's not very good at expressing his feelings. But he gets there eventually. And then Marianne is just kind of like always been forced to hold people at a distance. And so she's also kind of held Connell at a distance. And what happens is when the story starts, Connell's like popular at school and Marianne is kind of this social pariah. She's like the rich girl of the town, but in a town where there's only kind of like one rich family. She's ostracized basically and like teased a lot. And then they basically trade spots in college. Like Connell's like this poor dude at this very rich school. He has to work a lot and he has a lot of trouble adjusting to university life. Like he's good at school, but like the social bits of it are very hard for him versus like Marianne, who's like thriving. Like all the friends she didn't have like in secondary school, she definitely has them like tenfold at university. And then like in between that, there's these just like hot and heavy love scenes between them where they get together and they break up and they're secretly dating and then they're not. And then by the end, you're like, oh my God, please be together. And then it's all shot extremely beautifully. In America, it was premiered here on Hulu, but like in the United Kingdom, it was like on regular TV. It was like BBC. So I'm like, how?
They'd be wilding
They
out there.
put this on TV
I mean,
just
didn't
for people
yeah,
to watch.
didn't BBC used to put Skins on?
Oh, you're right. Or was
I'm
that
like,
BBC?
they're a little bit more open than we are with
Oh,
their
yeah,
network
with our, like,
television.
puritanical,
It's
like,
really funny.
repressedness,
We
but
had this
also
exact
but, like, these
conversation on
scenes
another
were very,
podcast.
like these scenes were just very hot and heavy, and I was like, "How is this on just, like, channel 1?"
Oh, I'm sorry, it was on E4.
Yeah, so that's a little bit not BBC is like ABC or NBC, it's just, like, the regular TV that you turn on versus, like, I think E4 might just be cable, but I'm not completely sure, don't quote me.
I don't know much about British television except for the
Um
BBC and ITV.
Yeah, and ITV is, like, also, like, what do you call it? Is also just regular, like, publicly
Network.
available, I believe, yeah. Anyway, it was really good, really just, like, heart-wrenching at times, and Paul Mescal, who plays Connell, he got an Emmy nom. Daisy Edgar Jones did not, and I was very upset by it. And she totally deserved an Emmy nom too. And then like Connell wears this like thin gold chain the whole time, and it just there was something about that chain, and it got so popular it has its own Instagram page.
Goodness gracious.
Like its own Instagram fan page.
What a mess.
People are ridiculous.
You know how fandoms be.
Yep. Yep. But it's a really great show. It kind of broke my heart at times, and at other times, I was just really frustrated, like anyone else that's watching a torrid love story go on. I highly recommend it. It's beautifully shot. It makes Ireland look like this beautiful place, wonderful place, and check it out. It's on Hulu. There's
Nice.
12 episodes.
So my number 6, I think I might get skipped on this one. My number 6 is The Boys.
I knew you were gonna say that. You are getting skipped.
Hey, all right then. So let's move along to number 5, Dallas.
Number 5 is The Boys.
Hey, let's talk about
Stop
The Boys.
Yes, The Boys on Amazon Prime is developed by Eric Kripke, the guy who made Supernatural,
Yep.
a show that I was very into until I wasn't. It stars Jack Quaid, Carl Urban, Anthony Starr, Aaron Moriarty, Laz Alonso, and a bunch of other people.
So many people.
Yes, summary is a group of vigilantes set out to take down corrupt superheroes who abuse their superpowers.
Let's talk about The Boys, Dallas.
Let's
Let's
talk about
talk
The Boys.
about the madness that is The Boys.
It's so ridiculous,
The
Oh my
violence that
but it's
is The
done so
Boys.
well. It's
It
just like
is.
it's like beneath all of the like ultra violence and gratuitous sex and like crude humor, like this is a really good story. Like this is really good storytelling and character development hidden underneath just the goofiest stuff that they could put on a TV show.
Mother's milk.
Mother's
Yo,
Milk. It's a character's name.
The Boys is so good. Barack Obama was praising the show, all right?
That's all you need to know. OBZ likes it.
Oh,
Exactly.
busy.
Yeah,
But
season 2 just came out this previous year, and it was wild. I finished that season finale and was just like, "Yo, I think I need to rewatch everything with the information that I just gathered." Because
yeah, it was honestly I felt the same way. And like this show and coming out the way it did, like the weekly release instead of all at once, it
yeah,
brought me back to like, the days of anticipating a show coming out. Like, oh my God, it's Friday. My show's coming on. Like that's how I was
yeah,
feeling with the show. And just like now there are so many dark and gritty takes on superheroes, but this one feels like the most well adapted to today because it takes on like today's social climate, which includes Nazis.
yeah.
Like,
This one and Watchmen are literally the best
mhm. and
nitty-gritty
and I think
superhero.
this one is better for like not like Watchmen kind of seems more what could happen, like dystopian. This
Yeah,
one feels like if superheroes were around today, this is exactly what it would look like. Like cinematic
capitalism.
universes, yeah, marketing conglomerates taking over everything, performative representation. Like, oh, we have a gay superhero on our team. Look at us.
Yeah,
Let's make commercials about it, and it's like,
"Hey, look, we
all
just
right,
added another woman to the team where,
exactly.
girls get things done."
Girls get it done. Hashtag girls get it done. Like they do everything so well with the commentary.
Oh my goodness, and then the fact that they managed to bring somebody on the show that I hated more than Homelander.
Right. Like what's Stormfront. Stormfront makes Homelander look like not that bad of a person, which is
Oh my
insane.
gosh. Yo, Homelander was giving her looks sometimes like, "Yo, you crazy."
Right. Like, yo, girl, you tripping.
And she's one of my favorite actresses.
Yeah, Aya Cash is super dope.
She was amazing on this show. I would watch the show and be like, "I hate your character, and I kind of feel bad for you because of how much I hate this character, but you're doing such a great job."
But it's so interesting because, well, let me avoid, anything spoiler. But just like to go off of that, they have so many flawed characters, but for the most part, at least the ones on our side, like the boys, they managed to make me care about all of them. Butcher is a bad dude.
Butcher's a douchebag. Yeah.
Exactly. But you show the stuff that happens to him and like you see, who his dad is and how he grew up. And I'm like, oh man, I can't even really hate you like that anymore.
You're like, "No wonder you're a douchebag." Like,
Exactly. Like, of course you ended up like this. But then you have characters like Frenchie, and it's like, man, Frenchie is just, I want to protect him at all costs. He is like the domestic terrorist with a heart of gold, if there can be one.
yeah.
Mother's Milk is by far my favorite.
I gotta say, I was surprised that they got me to like Ashley this season, because last season I was like, "Oh, man, Ashley annoys me." This season, I was like, "I kinda feel bad for her. She's really just trying to do her job, and all
Yeah,
these superheroes are messing her up."
I hated Ashley in the first season, but you
Which
know,
one's Ashley?
she's like the assistant who works for the major corporation.
Oh, okay. Got it.
She's like the PR lady.
Shout out to Giancarlo Esposito, continuing to play amazing villains,
Yep, he just keeps on popping up in shows as the villain. It's like,
and
oh,
he's great.
Giancarlo's here. I think one of the most impressive performances was episode 6 when you find out what happened with Frenchie in the lamplighter
Yeah,
situation. I was like, oh,
In the
my little
what?
Frenchie.
Lamplighter.
Yeah, he's like a fire dude who's
It was
played
nice
by
to see Shawn
Iceman from X Men.
Ashmore.
Yeah, shout
Yeah.
out to him. Last shout out I want to give is for Karen Fukuhara, who plays
Oh,
Kimiko,
love her.
because she doesn't say anything, but she's so impressive, like without even speaking. Like her face, her gestures, everything about her emotion and her little fake sign language that she does. She's great.
It was really weird too. Around that time, I was watching She-Ra and the Princesses of Power for the first time. I was like binge watching it at the same time as I was watching The Boys, and it's just so weird because she plays Princess Glimmer on She-Ra.
Oh, I heard about that.
I was getting to hear her voice consistently, and I was just like, I I can't picture this voice coming
Yeah,
out of Karen's character on. I can't imagine it coming out of Kamiko. And it was so weird. It was just like such a disconnect. I love her as Princess Glimmer, but also she's amazing on The Boys. I want to give a shout out to Chantel Van Santen, who plays Becca Butcher.
oh yeah, she was great.
She's great on the show. I've seen her in a few things, but she's never interested me on, and it's not her fault. It's the characters that she's playing.
That's fair.
I've never really been interested in her characters before, but I really loved Becca, especially like this season. I like fell in love with her, and as well as Cameron Crovetti, who plays her
The
son
son.
on the show.
Yeah,
Yeah, he plays Ryan. I loved watching the two of them on the show together and watching how they played a part in it, and getting to see her interact with Homelander and getting to see her interact with Billy as well, and seeing the drastic differences between the two. Also getting to see Homelander interact with Ryan.
that was horrifying.
Oh my gosh. I just wanna say, I think I legitimately yelped when he pushed that child off the roof.
That
Was it
was wild.
like the ending scene of Game of Thrones season 1, episode
No,
1?
it wasn't like
No,
that.
no, no, it wasn't.
It was worse?
No, it wasn't that bad.
No, it's not even bad. It's
Okay.
just like I knew it was coming, but at the same time, I was like, "Don't you dare, don't you dare." No, he did it.
And he did it.
Oh god.
So yeah, great show.
That's such a great scene. Yeah, it's a great show. It's a fantastic show. I can't wait for season 3 to come out, especially because Jensen Ackles is gonna be on the next season.
Yes, Dean playing
Oh
And
yeah.
Soldier Boy.
also, with that cliffhanger, I just
He's
what?
playing Soldier Boy? He's playing Captain America?
Basically,
I feel like Homelander is supposed to be Captain America, but, like, yeah.
I think Homelander's
Homelander's
supposed to be
like
Superman.
Captain America's Superman,
Yeah.
but evil. But yeah,
Definitely.
I recommend the show if you like superheroes and have a high tolerance for excessive violence and vulgarity.
Yeah, I
Absolutely. You have
couldn't
to
do
have a
it.
very high tolerance for the crap that they make you watch on that show.
To give you like an idea, one of the characters says, "Stop being a pussy and laser my tits,"
Oh my gosh, no.
and that's
I
not
Why
the
is
know
weirdest
that
thing. That's not the weirdest
scene
thing that happened
why is that the scene that you referenced?
because
because
it's
people need to know what they're getting into.
awful.
There's also
Also,
a
like, I
scene
couldn't do it. I could
there's
not do it.
also a scene where a mirror image copy of somebody almost sucks their dick.
Oh, yes, that was too much.
Ew.
So if you can't handle this, please don't watch this show.
Yeah,
I
know what you're
don't.
getting
I
into.
can't. I don't watch the show.
It's not for Gabby.
It's not for a lot of people, to be
It's
honest.
too much.
Yeah. Gabby, what's your number 5? Let's move on after that
Oh,
note.
goodness gracious. My number 5. My number 5 is The Mandalorian.
Skip.
Alrighty.
So that brings us to me. My number 5 is Disney Gallery, The Mandalorian.
Stop it. That's
Which is
different, though. It's
it
different,
is.
right?
It's the documentary about the making of The Mandalorian, which you can
Yep.
find on Disney Plus. It's like
I've
an
watched that. It's great.
yes, I believe it's 8 episodes, 9 maybe. I don't remember. It's 8 or 9 episodes, and it's fantastic. It's just a really insightful look as to how they made the show. Every episode is a different topic, so, like, your directors, the legacy of Star Wars, the special effects, music has its own episode, just all sorts of things, and it's all very in-depth, and I really love it. I love getting to watch this roundtable of directors and the different people involved in making the show talk about Star Wars, the importance of Star Wars, and how this show came to be. That's just totally my jam because Star Wars is my favorite piece of media that's probably in existence. And it's the movie that inspired me to become a writer and a director. So getting to hear people talk about the making of these things is really fantastic. It's really what I love. I don't think there's much more I can say about that. If you're into those types of docu-series, if you like looking into how shows and movies are made, go ahead and check out Disney Gallery The Mandalorian on Disney Plus. So that takes us to number 4. Dallas, what you got?
All right, number 4 is The Outsider on HBO.
Whoa, is that a
This
Stephen King adaptation?
it is a Stephen King adaptation.
I guessed it.
You did a good job. It's developed by Richard Price, who wrote the Shaft movie that came out in 2000, which is very different. It stars Ben Mendelsohn, Cynthia Erivo, Jason Bateman, a little bit, but he also directed the first 2 episodes, so he is involved.
Oh, very nice.
And I watched this a while back. It's one of the first shows I think I brought up during the quarantine watch,
Hmm.
and I
I
talked
think so.
about yeah, yeah. And I talked about how it goes from like crime drama to supernatural horror, but it does them both very, very well. I don't need to take a whole lot of time on it because you can just go back to that episode if you want to know what I thought. But Cynthia Erivo was amazing. Definitely should get some kind of award for whatever performance you get awards. What's TV? Emmys, Golden Globes, all that.
Emmys and
Emmys.
Golden Globes.
Both of them. She should get both of them. But fortunately, it's for people who don't like horror. It's a lot more unsettling than it is actually scary because there's like a
Ooh.
lot. Yeah, there's a lot of mystery, and you're like kind of wondering what's going on. But the
Mhm.
actual horror isn't. I mean, it hits. Like, don't expect to not be scared if you don't handle horror well. Yeah, I wasn't super scared most of the time. I was just like, oh, this is creepy. What's going to happen? I was intrigued. There was a quote I wanted to talk about in the quarantine watch for this episode, but I didn't find it in time. And now I found it because I was talking about how they speak about supernatural things in a way that kind of makes me think like, what if all this stuff is real? Like it's so interesting because the story is very grounded, like in our own reality, to the point where most of the characters are very skeptical of the situation happening, but they deal with the skepticism. And Cynthia Erivo is like the one character who, right off the bat, is just accepting of what's happening, and everybody's looking at her like she's crazy, but she's like, "Yo, put all the pieces together. It's a monster." But one
Hmm.
of the quotes is from another character, and he talks about the old days when people would be accused of being like demons and witches and stuff like that. And he says, nowadays we've got science, psychology, so we know better than to mistake humans for demons. But what if every now and then we mistake a demon for a human? And that's kind of what the series is about, because the outsider is like this creature who can take the form of a human, and that leads into all kind of terrifying things. But yeah, I recommend it if you're into mysteries and the supernatural. and you can withstand all the spooky stuff, which I know probably isn't you two,
Nope.
but I wish you would see it because I don't have anybody to talk to about it because Kayla doesn't
Well,
watch scary stuff either.
I'm like, what, on a scale of Lovecraft Country to like, I'm trying to think of a horror show that would freak me out. To like, what's the one before Blythe Manor?
Oh, Hill House.
Yeah, on a scale of Lovecraft Country to Hill House,
I mean, can you handle both of those shows?
I can handle Lovecraft Country, as we have seen. I don't know if I can handle Hill House. I don't think so.
I feel like just give it a shot. Once you get to a point where you're like, nah, no more, then you just nope out. But it is very well written, performed, directed, all of that. So I think for that reason, I would recommend it to you. And just because I'm selfish and I want to talk to you about it.
All right, I'll see if I can handle an episode because I've seen a lot about it. I haven't watched it obviously because I didn't know what it was about. I just knew that it was Stephen King.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah, Gabby, number 4.
My number 4 is High Fidelity.
Hey, that was almost on. It was on my list for such a long time, and then I started watching a ton of TV shows.
Yeah, and we've talked about High Fidelity a lot. Just a quick reminder, High Fidelity is found on
Hulu.
Hulu. It stars Zoe Kravitz. It's basically a reimagining of the movie from like early 2000s, and
In which her mom also starred.
yeah, and which is based on a Nick Hornby book, and it was created, or it was developed, sorry, by Veronica West and Sarah Kuczerka, I believe is how you pronounce her name. I'm not entirely sure. And it follows the ultimate music fan, a record store owner who's obsessed with pop culture and top 5 lists in the neighborhood of Crown Heights, Brooklyn. And the reason the show's on my list and the reason I love it so much is because it finally shows us Zoe Kravitz in a starring role.
Thank
And
God.
yes, and like we all knew that Zoe had it in her and she can deliver, and she was finally given a chance to. And I'm very upset that there's no season 2 because
Same,
this
fam.
show low key left off on a cliffhanger, and also like it was just so good and the music was amazing. And I mean, I could go on, and I have in previous episodes, and I don't want to take up more time.
Also, I
But
wanted more time with her besties.
right, they were both amazing. I wanted to see how things went with the Jake Lacey character because I love Jake Lacey. He's such a sweetie pie.
I wanted to see how
Um,
things were gonna go for Charisse because she didn't get her own solo episode the way that Simon did. So
exactly. It's not fair. None of this is fair. I'm so sad. But
Hulu, Disney, reconsider.
yes, but if you also want to be sad with us, check out High Fidelity on Hulu. It was really good, even though it's not being renewed. I highly recommend it.
It's also a very good time.
Yeah, it's just a great time. It's a great show. Ugh, the music's amazing. It has some of my favorite people in it. Just just check it out.
All right, so my number 4, we're gonna bring it back around because my number 4 is The Mandalorian, created by Jon Favreau. It's about the travels of a lone bounty hunter in the outer reaches of the galaxy, far from the authority of the New Republic. The show
Let's
stars
get
Pedro
into it. Sorry.
The show stars Pedro Pascal as the Mandalorian, as well as a puppet as Baby Yoda, who currently has a name, but I'm not going to reveal it on this podcast because I feel like that's just rude. It also features appearances by Gino Carano, Giancarlo Esposito, Carl Weathers, Rosario Dawson, Ming-Na Wen, Tamara Morrison, and quite a number of others.
And Bill Burr.
Bill
Yeah,
Burr.
Bill Burr.
He had a
I was
fantastic episode this season.
Oh yeah. I was gonna say, even saying that he has a name now is a spoiler.
Well,
Is what I
that's
was going for.
at the very least, though, there have been articles with the headline that we learn his name, so that's not really a spoiler.
Ugh,
He has a
I
name.
don't like that. I mean, of
Obviously, he has
course,
a
but
name.
also but yeah, but like I don't I
This is a
would I would
50-year-old creature. You think he doesn't have a name?
No, my whole thing is like I didn't want to know that we find out his name. Like because of those articles, I found out that you find out his name in that episode, and
That's
I wish I had just been watching the episode and been like, his name.
that's
And
exactly
maybe I
why
would
I
have hated it less.
that's also why I stay off social media on the days that The Mandalorian comes out,
Yeah, I don't
because
know,
I know that I'm
man.
probably gonna get spoiled and there's gonna be a lot of information. But yes, The Mandalorian, one of my favorite shows, currently. It's a great first run into Star Wars television. Live action television. I'm not going to say television altogether
Yeah.
because they've got some really great animated TV series that should be checked out.
Yeah. I want to highlight something that I feel like doesn't really get enough attention. Pedro Pascal's acting in that suit when you can't see his face
Well,
is
if you know it's him.
that's true. But just like the feeling that you get, I didn't think that I would care so much about a dude whose face I can't see. And yet I do. And like so there's been a couple of times where he's had to take the helmet off. And even though like you now get to see his face and you get to experience the full like range of expression and you can do when you act with when you're showing your face, um you're like, no, don't do it, like because he's convinced you that like he doesn't need it. And it's just so wild to me that he was able to deliver this kind of performance when like you would think it would just be a hindrance and make him less interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, the most recent time that he's had to take off his helmet was very well done.
Yeah.
But yeah, season 2, I'm really liking season 2. I thought that season 2 started off a little slow, even though I did enjoy the first 2 episodes, but once you get to episode 3, I really thought it started picking up. I don't think I like it as much as season 1 because I think season 2 is pandering a little too hard to the fans by bringing back fan favorites that only fans are going to know if you have really been diving into Star Wars lore outside of the movies.
What are you
Um,
talking about? Which characters?
Several characters. There are several
Oh.
characters who you may not be as excited to see as hardcore Star Wars fans unless like I said, unless you've really been paying attention. I don't wanna
I don't
say
think
because we're
Jimmy wants to, yeah, give away any reveals.
Okay,
yeah.
tell me about them off mic, but yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
but there are a few characters where I'm just like, "This is cool. This is awesome," because I'm a Star Wars fan. However, I still think that the stories that they're telling are fantastic even with this fan service.
Mm.
Like I said, was I think episode 3 is the start of it just kinda just kicking off really hard, even though that's also where, like, the fan service hardcore kicks in. Um, but, episode 3 was great. Episode 3 was great, 4 was great, 5 was freaking amazing. Oh my gosh, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. 7 was great. Like, it's just they're all really good episodes. Even if you don't think that they're, like, fantastic, they're still good. I never think that an episode is bad.
I agree, but I feel like you kind of also you have some story experts there, you know? It's not like a show that started it's not like a little engine that could. It's like a show that's been giving every resource available. So
Yeah,
I
but even
kind
then,
of like
some storytellers still fall, on
that's true.
occasion.
That's true, but I'm just glad that it's keeping the quality of storytelling, and I feel like it should considering all of the resources that it has. I do agree with you that the beginning of season 2 was a bit slow, but considering what they're doing to us emotionally at the end of season 2, I'm
Season
kind
2
of like glad they started us off like it's like they eased us back into the world. They were like, "We've been gone for a year. So we're just going to give you a nice little easy story where you know it's probably going to end just fine, just to ease you back in before we hit the ground running in like episode 3."
Listen, they're about to leave us off with a for the record, for anybody listening, we are currently recording this before the season finale of Mandalorian season 2.
That's
But they're
correct.
they're going to be leaving us on another year without The Mandalorian because the next episode after this season finale will not be until Christmas 2021. Um, but, like, yeah, also shout out to the directors of this season, Jon Favreau, Peyton Reed. Rick Famuyiwa directed another smash this season. Robert Rodriguez did a fantastic episode. Dave Filoni did what might be my favorite episode of The Mandalorian this season.
Bryce Dallas Howard's episode was
Yes.
great
Oh, Bryce Dallas
too.
Howard continuing to kill with the Star Wars content.
Ugh, she's so good.
Yeah, like, they're doing a really great job. They're getting some really great directors, and directors that I admire as well, and I'm also very thankful that Dave Filoni was the one to write episode 5. I was watching it, and I was like, "Nobody could have written this episode other than Dave Filoni."
Question. Which
Yes.
one's what happens in
Episode
episode
5 is
5?
called The Jedi.
Oh, got it. Got
um,
it. Yes, I agree.
fantastic. Just a fantastic show. I had my uncle texted me the other day and was like, "Okay, so I just watched season 1 and I was slow on." He was like, "Obviously, I was slow on the pickup, but the show was great." And I was like, "Yes, The Mandalorian is fantastic."
Also, it's a great show even if you're not a Star Wars fan. Like I've talked to people at work that are like, "Oh, I was just curious." And they're hooked as well. So that's how
Yeah,
you know that this like there's my whole thing is also like I can't quite tell where the fan service is to me. So like that's why I want to ask you about it cuz I want to know where it exists because I'm not as much like I haven't seen the animated stuff. I've really only seen the movies and the Mandalorian. Um
you're kinda middle
some
ground, I
of
feel.
yeah. So like some of the fan service is lost on me. Some of it I'm like, even though it's probably not there's no chance that this character could have come back, I'm really glad that they did. Like I agree with you that I feel like even though the fan service is done, like where I've caught it anyway, it didn't feel like it was too forced and it
Yeah.
serves the story's purpose.
They're making a good story around that service, which I'm down
Yeah.
for.
Which I like. I prefer, like, them being like you know what I like is, like, I like when they say, "Okay, this is the kind of fan service we wanna do. Does it fit into our story?" And then if they can find a way for it to fit and fit, like, perfectly or almost perfectly, then do it, and if it doesn't fit perfectly, if it's too forced, if it's too cheesy, then do away with it, and I feel like they found a good balance from what I can tell.
You're totally spot on about people who don't like Star Wars being able to enjoy The Mandalorian. My cousin, who has I think she's enjoyed maybe one Star Wars movie in the entirety of her lifetime. I grew up with her, like, hating Star Wars, but me and her can talk about Mandalorian on a weekly basis because she actually finds Mandalorian fascinating and interesting to watch.
Yeah, and what I like is it's a different take on the worlds, it's a different perspective, it's a different pretty much everything. It has almost nothing to do with the Skywalker saga. It's just close enough that people are comfortable, but far enough away that, if somebody came up to me and was like, "This is Star Wars," I would be like, "Yep, it is."
Yeah, for me
um,
personally, I've always found that for me, the Jedi lore in Star Wars is the most fascinating thing about Star Wars, but I think the Mandalorian lore, the lore of Mandalore per se, is the second most interesting thing in Star Wars.
yeah. And I like that we're finding out that there's much more to that Mandalore lore than we originally knew. And we're finding out that maybe like the Mandalorian isn't the only way, which I think is interesting.
I would highly recommend anybody who's interested in The Mandalorian and interested in the lore of the show, check out The Clone Wars and Rebels because both of those shows go deep into Mandalorian lore. There's quite a bit of information out there, so it's interesting to watch The Mandalorian and to see because when I started the show, I was like, "Why is he like this? Like, you can take off your helmet."
And see, I didn't know that. And so I'm starting to find that out.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's The Mandalorian on Disney Plus. It's fantastic whether you like Star Wars or don't like Star Wars.
Yay.
Alright, guys, top 3, top 3, top 3.
Top three,
Wah,
top
wah,
three, top three.
wah.
Dallas, what is your number 3?
Number 3 is Dave on FX and Hulu.
Nice.
Yay.
Yes. Created by Dave Bird, aka Lil Dicky, and Jeff Schaefer. Schaefer created The League and directed Euro Trip. Haven't seen that in years. It stars Lil Dicky, Taylor Meshach, Gata, Andrew Santino, Travis Bennett, Christine Cole. Everyone is a treasure. This is one of the best supporting casts ever. Summary. A neurotic mid 20s suburbanite is convinced he's destined to be one of the greatest rappers of all time, and now he's got to prove it to everyone else. For those who don't know, it's autobiographical but fictionalized. So, as a Lil Dicky fan, it's much more enjoyable to me because I can see different things in the story that like maybe he's talked about or has written songs about, and I'm like, oh my god, I remember that happening. It's obviously hilarious. He's
Oh
funny.
yeah.
His supporting cast is really funny. It's surprisingly emotionally rich in certain parts that I didn't expect because I thought it was just going to be a really dumb comedy. Like I said about, being a fan of his music, There's a song he has called Molly, and it's about a failed relationship that didn't work out because he was so focused on his aspirations. And there's an episode that seems to take really heavily from that story. Man, that one hurt.
Mm.
But speaking of episodes that hurt, the one that everyone's talking about is the one about Gata, his hype man. And it deals with mental health in a way that I was not ready for the show to deal with it. Because if you've seen any part of the show besides that, like you see Gata and he's just like, he's the hype man. He's up and down, jumping, like, yo, what we gonna do? Let's get it, let's get it. And then this show goes into his own like issues with mental health and his past. And it's just like, man, Dickie, what are you doing? This is not what I came here for. But it's great. So I can't even be mad. It's just like the comedy is perfect and the drama is perfect. So it's just a really wonderful show. I recommend, especially if you're a Lil Dicky fan. If not, if you can deal with like really awkward comedy, go for it. It's on FX and it's on Hulu. Enjoy the show.
I mean, I've heard that the show is very
Yay.
funny.
It's great.
Gabby, what is your number three?
My number three is Never Have I Ever, which is on Netflix. It was created by Mindy Kaling and it stars Maitreyi Ramakrishnan, Darren Barnett, Leek Rodriguez, and Jaron Lewison, which are predominantly all newcomers, particularly Maitreyi Ramakrishnan. She, I think, had been in like one other thing other than this. And I think she recorded her audition on like her iPhone and she and her friend kind of submitted it as like a dare almost.
Nice.
If I remember correctly from her like stories. I love this show because one, it's hilarious, but two, I don't know how to explain. Here, I'll just read that like IMDb description of it because it's like the easiest way I think to talk about the show.
Yeah, that's why I started doing that. It's way easier than trying to explain it myself.
Yes. Okay. So the story centers around Devi Vishwakumar, a 15-year-old girl from Sherman Oaks, Los Angeles. After a socially horrible freshman year, Devi wants to change her social status, but friends, family, and feelings do not make it easy for her. So it's kind of that like Mindy Kaling humor where the character on the surface seems very like vapid and only concerned with outer appearance and like social status. But as the episodes go on, you realize there's a lot of depth to her, and a lot of the reason that they're behaving in this way is to kind of like make up or compensate for like feelings of guilt or imposter syndrome or things like that that are kind of weighing them down. And I think it's a really interesting way to examine what it's like being the child of immigrants in the United States, what it's like being a teenage girl in Los Angeles, and what it's like, having really high aspirations, but also going through a period of dealing with trauma at the same time. And all of this, like, interspersed with just like lighthearted comedy. Another interesting thing about the show is it's narrated by Joe McEnroe, the angry tennis player.
It seems
Um,
random.
it's not. It's explained in the first episode
Okay,
why.
good.
And then one episode was narrated by Andy Samberg.
Nice.
And it's really great. I've talked about it before on a quarantine watch, obviously, but I just love it so much that I figured I'd give it a little bit more time. Can't wait till season 2. I love it, and I love everybody on the show, and I love Mindy Kaling, and highly recommend Never Have I Ever.
Very nice.
All right, then. Yeah. So my number three is The Umbrella Academy
Nice.
because it was
Woo!
awesome this season. A family of former child heroes now grown apart must reunite to continue to protect the world, which applies to both season one and season two. Ain't that crazy?
It's true.
The show was created by Steve Blackman. It's based on the comic books by Gerard Way. Yeah, and the show stars Elliot Page, Tom Hopper, David Castaneda, Emmy Raver Lampman, Robert Sheehan, Aidan Gallagher, Justin H. Men, and Ritu Arya. I'm gonna give her that because she was great this season. Yeah, it's one of my favorite shows of this year. I love The Umbrella Academy. I think it's really interesting. I think it's a fascinating take on superheroes. And also I kind of really love the way that it delves into abusive familial relations and how those impact the way that we behave as adults.
Oh yeah, Diego was going through it.
Yeah, because each character has a very different, obviously, a very different reaction to who their father is, different relationship with him, even though he was abusive to all of them. And then their relationships with each other are also impacted by their relationships with their father. I would love to talk about Allison. They lived, well, she lived a completely normal life for the most part outside of this household, and then she came back into it, and she got back into those same that same mindset that she was in living in that household, and I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, that's true. She went out, became successful, did some questionable things.
Yeah, but also those questionable things are a result of the childhood that she had. She wasn't taught that she had to restrain her abilities and her powers.
Yeah,
So, when you're not taught that and you have the ability to have people do whatever you want them to do, if you don't have restraint, if you weren't taught restraint, then you're probably not gonna restrain yourself. And then I think also they went really hard in the paint this time around, really with Diego. Diego, I didn't really care too much about in the first season. Second season made me fall in love with Diego and his relationship with Lila because I think Lila is also a very interesting, like another character to look at in regards to the theme of abuse and how it affects us in the show. I think that was a fantastic storyline. It was probably my favorite storyline of the entire season was her and Diego.
that was an interesting one.
It was interesting, and that's man, just give me the fascinating stuff, bro. That's what I want. I want these deep dives into relationships that definitely should not work. Just try like, just people trying, because that's really all the Umbrella Academy is. It's these adults trying, while
And there are
also needing to save the world.
so many relationships that like shouldn't or can't even work. Like whether they're separated by like time or one person being a ghost. Like Ben gets more to do this season, which I love because he was one of my favorite parts of the first season.
Yeah.
But then like what he wants is so obviously like unattainable. It's just like, man, that's sad. But then he gets his moment at the end of the season, so we'll see what happens next season with that.
Oh my gosh, that cliffhanger.
I have questions.
I cannot wait to see where that goes. Because yeah, they left it on a good cliffhanger for the Umbrella Academy. They left it on a good cliffhanger for Lila because we don't know what's gonna happen with her now. It's gonna be interesting. I am looking forward to whatever the next season brings us. But yeah, this season was really good, really interesting. Allison going back in time to a civil rights movement era was definitely interesting, although I missed her curls, so let's bring that back next season.
The curls would be nice.
Yeah, I was like, "Okay, the straight hair is fine, but I'm missing Emmy Raver Lampman's curls right now because they were fire in the first season." So, yeah, that's my number 3, The Umbrella Academy, which is on Netflix, and it's absolutely awesome. There are 2
I
seasons.
dig it.
Alright, guys, number 2. Oh my gosh, let's get through this.
We're making our way through. Number 2 for me is Woke on Hulu.
Hey, let's talk about it.
Let's talk about Woke. So it's created by Keith Knight and Marshall Todd. It stars Lamorne Morris, Blake Anderson, T. Murph, Rose McIver. Voice cameos from everyone: Eddie Griffin, Nicole Byer, Sam Richardson, Tony Hale, JB Smoove, Cedric the Entertainer, Lil Rel Howery, Cree Summer, Keith David, etc., etc. Yeah, we talked about this in our quarantine watch, but in case you missed that, summary is Keith, not Keith, Keith is an African American cartoonist on the verge of mainstream success when an unexpected incident changes his life. And this is also autobiographical, but fictionalized in a certain way. So I guess that's just my thing now. I'm into those kind of shows. Gabby, what do you want to say about Woke since you had it on your list as well?
Gosh, I like how it highlights that moment when you, especially like, I feel like a lot of us people of color that grew up in more like middle class kind of situations, more suburban, it really highlights well that moment where you're like, oh no, the world is not how it's been sold to me.
Yeah. And it does it in a very, like, a super creative way
Yes.
of exploring that because that's not something I ever thought of. Like, being woke is such an overdone, overused phrase. We hear it all the time. But, like, the thought of being woke means you hear objects talking to you and telling you about all the racist stuff that's happening and like you got to do something about it. And that like leads to the notion that once his friend finds out like, oh man, this nigga woke, it's kind of like people who are already socially aware have been dealing with that already this whole time.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's nice that it is autobiographical because it has the authenticity that comes with that.
Yeah.
But then you get like the premise and you get like the over the top comedy of like a Bible voiced by Keith David
Yeah.
yelling at Lamorne on a bus.
Yeah, the whimsy of it too.
Yes, you get the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
And man, like the supporting characters are great. I love both of Keith's friends, and they're so
Yes.
great in such different ways.
Yes. I love so I think Blake Anderson's cornrows scene.
That was hilarious. I loved it so much.
Oh, and then I love when Clovis is played by T Murph. I love when Clovis tells Keith, "Okay, you're woke now, but you're about to make it, so like simmer it down, like pretend like you're
Exactly.
not.
He's
Just
like,
get over it."
maintain, just maintain. You know, you're woke, but being woke is not the best. He said, "Woke rhymes with broke."
And he's not. I mean, oh, you kind of hate it, but also like the practicality of that advice.
Yeah, like you got to play the game right now. Like this is not the best time for you to act on becoming woke.
Exactly.
But man, it's just so good. And I think one of the things I love so much about this show is that it came out of nowhere for me. Like it wasn't a show I was anticipating. It's not like another season of something I'd already watched. It was just one day I saw this trailer and I was like, this looks hilarious. And then boom, it's on Hulu. So it was such a nice surprise.
Yeah. I
And
agree. I
yeah, and I love it so
mostly
much.
I mostly watched it for Lamorne. I love Lamorne. I was waiting for a vehicle where he would be the center, and I'm glad that it presented itself. And I'm glad that it presented itself and I like didn't know that it was happening.
Yeah,
That it was just like here and like ready and I didn't have to wait for it. Oh, God, he did such a good job too.
he did.
He was he's like a star basically. That's what I'm saying.
He is. He's great. The show is great. I think like out of all the shows I've talked about, I can recommend this one to like the widest audience because I want to specify I said wide, not white. The widest audience because it's just like great comedy. It has social commentary, but it's more lighthearted than like, you know,
Yes.
watching people die or
Like there was no point where he had like a very very serious monologue where you were like, "Oh no, this took a turn." It was always like played for comedy.
Yeah, and even toward the end, like there's one confrontation he has toward the end that like is more serious than probably the rest of the stuff,
Yeah.
but it's not like
It
blind spotting level.
yeah, it wasn't intense. It was just like, "Oh, this is going to go down and you know what? This person deserves it."
Yeah. And I don't want to say like lighthearted and like to make it seem like it's any less effective
Yeah.
because that's one of the things that he says in the beginning is like I like to keep it light and I don't mean he's doing that. It's just
Yeah.
the comedy works very well in tandem with the commentary.
Exactly.
So shout out to Keith Knight and Marshall Todd and all those other people I named who are involved with the show.
Yes, I agree. I agree with what you said.
Lovely. So tell us what's your number 2 for the year.
Ooh, my number 2 is Schitt's Creek.
Hey, I'm not that far yet, but hey.
Yeah. So Schitt's Creek is or here's the description from IMDb. When rich video store magnate Johnny Rose and his family suddenly find themselves broke, they are forced to leave their pampered lives to regroup in Schitt's Creek. What they don't tell you in that description is they were an extremely rich family, and Schitt's Creek is a town they purchased. One of the people on the like purchased as a joke and gave it to the other member of the family. The series is created by Eugene Levy and his son Dan Levy, and it originally played on Pop TV, but now it's on Netflix. And this year it finished its sixth and final season. And it basically swept all of the major comedy awards at the Emmys. It was quite awesome. Basically, every major Emmy it was nominated for, it won, and rightly deserved.
Yeah, I'm not to the last season yet. I think I'm like halfway through season 3, but that show is freaking hysterical and I cannot get over the way that the sister says, "David?" Like,
David. Ew,
David.
David.
And she says it
David.
the same way every single time and it's amazing.
So she realized it kind of mildly annoyed Dan Levy, but it worked so well for comedy. So she just started adding it to lines.
Oh my
So
gosh, she does
like,
it so well.
no, my favorite thing about Alexis. Alexis is the sister. My favorite thing about her is that she's had some really dark international experiences,
It's
and she just,
amazing.
like, lightly peppers them through conversation. She'll just
And
be like
everybody looks at her like she's crazy.
like, she's crazy, but she's like, "Whatever." My favorite one, or one of my favorite ones, is when or David's character goes, "You were missing," and she goes, "I wasn't missing, David. The FBI knew where I was the entire time." And it's just like, "What?" Or she's like, "One time, me and the Saudi prince were forbidden from looking at each other or talking to each other, and we made it work for like half a regime change." And I was like, "What? Where were you? What were you doing?
She's
Why were
wild, bro.
you why were you in the Middle East?" Um, so
She
wild. Or like there's this other time.
she does it often, and it's great.
Often. It's just like, and apparent so, like, Dan Levy would write those, and he's like, "Oh, I had so much fun trying to come up with those." Like, one time they were going through a checkpoint, she's like, "This is just a checkpoint. I've been through, like, a million of these. It's just like a drive-through, except everybody has guns." And it's just like, "What?" Or,
She's
like, she
wild.
said, "I've been through a million of these in Johannesburg," and I'm like, "What were you doing in South Africa?"
It's
Anyway.
whatever she wants because it's Alexis. I do wanna
Exactly.
congratulate her, though, because she is in a love triangle at this moment in time with 2 Canadian actors who I have had a crush on at various points of in my life. I did not realize that Tim Razan was on this show. He was on Instant Star, and Dustin Milligan, who I loved on 90210. It was crazy. I was like, "Why are you both here? What's going on? This show is so Canadian." And then
Oh.
there was an actress from Killjoys on 2 episodes, and I saw her face and was like, "You're familiar, but I can't quite pinpoint it." And then I looked her up and I was like, "Oh, because 'cause you're from Killjoys. This show is very Canadian."
Oh god, it's so good though. It's basically a fish out of water story for like 5 seasons. But what I like is instead of like so like season 1 was mostly them trying to just leave this place. But I like that eventually it didn't just stay in them trying to leave. It was like, this is their home now, which I liked because I thought it would have been very easy for them to play to them hating this town and wanting to leave constantly. They could have kept that, but instead they chose to make their characters grow like emotionally and become more self-sufficient and become kinder. Like if you watch the difference between season 1 and season 3 Alexis, or even episode 1 Alexis versus episode like the end of season 1 Alexis, like there's already growth there. There's so much heart, and even though like they were like a rich family and snooty, what I like about the characters and this family is that at the end, like they're a family. Like they did love each other and they're all in this together. Ugh, it's just a great show. The people in Schitt's Creek are also really great and hilarious. And it's just a great comedy show with a lot of heart. I just really, it's just like, it's probably gonna become like a great comfort show for me. It had like Parks and Rec vibes at the like in the middle there with all the different like people from the town that you got to know and everything. It's a really good show.
It is a really good show. Alright, my number 2 show, and it was very difficult going back and forth between my top 2 shows, by the way, I couldn't figure out where I wanted to put each one of them, but my number 2 show is Lovecraft Country.
I figured that'd be up there.
Woo!
Definitely up there. Lovecraft Country follows Atticus Freeman as he joins up with his friend Letitia and his uncle George to embark on a road trip across 1950s Jim Crow America in search of his missing father. This begins a struggle to survive and overcome both the racist terrors of white America and the terrifying monsters that could be ripped from a Lovecraft paperback. This was definitely one of my favorite shows of the year by far. It was an event every week. Every Sunday was like, all right, it's Lovecraft Country time. Like, it's time to watch. Like, got to sit down in my living room and make sure I can see this screen and see the craziness that's about to unfold.
Time to be scared and horny.
Hey,
I'm
hey,
just
hey,
kidding.
hey.
I mean,
Shh.
that did come up.
Yeah, no, I loved how genre bending Lovecraft Country was. I've said it in an episode before. I think I said it in the review. We did review this show, so you guys can head back to that to hear more thoughts. But once I saw the trailer, I knew that I had to watch this show, and I don't regret it. There were some episodes that were very empowering, some episodes that really like kind of flipped a mirror on you. And I thought that it was brilliant. Does it have its problematic elements? Yeah, I think every show does. Not every show is going to get it right, but I think that they set out to do something, and I think they did a great job doing it. So yeah, Lovecraft Country. Love that show. It was created by Misha Green and it stars Jonathan Majors, Jurnee Smollett, Courtney B. Vance, Michael Kenneth Williams, Anjanou Ellis, Wunmi Mosaku, Abby Lee, and Jamie Chung. And it's fantastic. It's great. Just about every actor that I just named off needs an award of some sort from the Emmys because it was dope. So yeah, Lovecraft Country. If you haven't seen it, please watch it. It's only 10 episodes and it's amazing. All right. So, our number ones, guys. We have reached the end of the list. Before we do that, though, I do have Colin's list, and I'm probably going to butcher some of these names, but I'm going to try my best. So, number 10, Elite. Number 9, Kibo and the Age of Wonder Beasts. Number 8, Owl House. Number 7, She-Ra and the Princesses of Power. Number 6, Brand New Animal. Number 5, My Hero Academia. Number 4, How To with John Wilson. Number 3, Keep Your Hands Off Aizukin. Number 2, A Crown of Candy. And number 1, The Haunting of Bly Manor.
I have seen one of those shows. I've heard of, I think, 3 of them.
I've heard of a
Also,
few.
I like that Colin slid his like furry show in there and then just didn't show up for the episode to talk about it. I see what you're up to, Colin.
Oh, man. All right. So,
I think
number
we don't
1.
know. I think we don't know about Brand New Animal, Colin.
Oh, Lord. Number 1, Dallas. What you got?
Number 1 for me is Ozark on Netflix.
I knew it.
Yes. It was created by a guy whose last name I can't pronounce. Bill Dubuque, I don't know. Sorry, Bill. But he wrote The Judge and The Accountant. It's also created by Mark Williams, much easier name to say. It stars Jason Bateman, Laura Linney, Julia Garner, a bunch of other people. Summary is a financial advisor drags his family from Chicago to the Missouri Ozarks, where he must launder money to appease a drug boss. So I was just watching a YouTube video about the timeline of this show to like refresh myself. It has so much going on. But it's worth it because the story is super compelling. But kind of like I said about Fargo, like you have to be paying attention or you're definitely going to miss something. And these characters are like, you can't help but want them to succeed because even though they're shady, they're dealing with people who are like downright villainous. So it's like, yeah, this family has some shady tendencies, but you're going up against like racist rednecks and abusive people and just straight up corrupt agents. So it's like, yeah, I'll take the money laundering Jason Bateman over the everybody else. Speaking of everybody else, I talked about this in the quarantine watch, but Tom Pelphrey joined the cast in season 3 and he was amazing. That's all I need to say about that. Dude's fantastic. Ruth is still maybe my favorite character because of her character arc. Like Zuko level, going from the first time she meets Marty, she's like, we're either going to rob you or kill you, because she was the teenage leader of a redneck crime family. And now she's like Marty's most trusted ally. But then, some things happen in the season that gets kind of shaky. Spoiler, spoiler, spoiler. But yeah, the show's amazing. Keeps you on edge pretty much up until the last shot. The final scene ends with my favorite song of the year right now, which is Ooh La La by Run the Jewels. So that just added a little cherry on top for me. But yeah, if you're into crime stories and Jason Bateman, I definitely recommend it. It's on Netflix.
Alrighty.
You're number 1, Gabby. What you got?
My number 1 is Mythic Quest Raven's Banquet. Wah, wah, wah.
Hey, Mythic Quest.
Yeah. Okay. So Mythic Quest's description is the owner of a successful video game design company and his troubled staff struggle to keep their hit game Mythic Quest on top. And it is created by Charlie Day, Megan Gantz, and Rob McElhenney. And it runs on Apple TV Plus. Now, this show is amazing. It stars Rob McElhenney, Charlotte Nickdow, David Hornsby, Ashley Birch, Jesse Enos, Imani Hakim, Danny Pudi, and F. Murray Abraham. Gosh, this show.
It's so good.
It's so good. It's like a great dysfunctional family story. And
Yeah.
Gosh, we've gone on and on about Mythic Quest and how amazing it is. I just want everybody to watch it and I want everybody to see it and tell me how they feel about it. Because it's just it's just so amazing.
And
Dallas?
it's like, even like for today, when like so many things are based around like streaming, online influencers, like Gamergate type nonsense. this show is perfect for like coming out when it did.
Yes.
Even if you're not really into video games, which I'm sure if you are into video games and this kind of comedy, you'll like it even more. But it's so good. And Rob and Charlie and Megan, they have a knack for creating a cast of characters who are completely ridiculous,
Yeah.
but then like throwing in normal people who can like act as a straight man. And that's
Yeah.
like some of my favorite types of comedy ever. But it's just,
Also,
it's
their
so good.
quarantine special is the only one that I was okay with.
Interesting.
Like, I've seen that, like, other shows, especially hospital shows, are doing, like, Corona,
Hmm.
but, like, somehow the Mythic Quest one just worked, like, actually worked for me.
It was really good. It was really well done.
Yeah. And I was just like, "Ugh, it's really good." And, like, that's where this show succeeds because, like, for one, it is a dysfunctional family, but for another, it's also, like, I hate to use this phrase again, but there is a lot of heart.
Yes, that's true.
And, like, what I also like about it is just, like, how insane the characters can be, even though this is supposed to be a working company.
Yeah, I don't know how it functions.
Poppy can just go off the rails and things get done, question mark?
Yeah,
It's
even though she's supposed to, like, initially you think Poppy's gonna be the normal one
yeah.
and comparing her to like Ian, but she's pretty wild too.
Yeah, she's crazy too.
It's great.
I could go on and on about Mythic Quest, but, like, I feel like I've done that a lot on this show. If I do anything, I hope that more people watch Mythic Quest because of our podcast, even though we do reach exactly 15 people.
We've been
I
doing
upped
better
it.
recently.
We're getting better. Yeah, we're getting better.
We are.
God. Anyway,
I'm gonna
so
say we reach 15 people until we hit 1,000 views on a video.
Jesus. All right. Well,
And then I'll up it to, like, 25.
yeah, so
Sounds
we're gonna
good.
end this with my number one show of the year, and my favorite show this year was Prodigal Son on Fox. Malcolm Bright, one of the best criminal psychologists around, uses his twisted genius to help the NYPD solve crimes. This synopsis does not include the fact that his father is also a serial killer that he put in jail when he was 10 years old. So,
It's a pretty big thing to leave out.
yeah, I know, right? I'm like, what? You left that part out? The show was created by Chris Fedek and Sam Claver. I am a fan of Chris Fedek because he created one of my other favorite shows, which is Chuck. He also just got his script. It's being made into a movie. It's called Ambulance. It's being directed by Michael Bay, and now I have to go see it because he wrote it and because Yahya Abdul-Mateen II and Asa Gonzalez are going to be in it. So
Nice. Sounds
to
like
watch it.
your kind of thing.
It does it though? I read the synopsis. I don't know if that's my sort of thing, but I'm gonna watch it anyway. Prodigal Son stars Tom Payne, Lou Diamond Phillips, Halston Sage, Aurora Perrineau, Frank Hartz, Kiko Agina? I don't know how to pronounce her last name. Bellamy Young, and Michael Sheen as Dr. Martin Whitley, aka the serial killer of the show. I have been obsessed with this show since I saw it for the first time, and it's great. First off, was definitely Malcolm is the main character played by Tom Payne, was one of my main reasons for continuing to watch the show. I just loved that he kind of walked this line between good and bad. Like there was always this potential for him to be bad, for him to kind of lose his cool and kind of go a little crazy and end up like his father, especially with his father consistently encouraging him to be more like him. And he just always showed signs that he could go that route. And yeah, the show really played on that expectation and they did it really well with that season finale. I was like, if we don't get a season 2, I have to fight somebody because I need to know where this is going. It's got a bit of a cop procedural sort of thing going for it, since he's working with the NYPD, but it's also got the family drama, which is what I'm actually there for, between Malcolm and his mother and his father and his sister. And I'm excited because his sister is definitely going to be playing a bigger role this upcoming season. I think Halston Sage did a wonderful job playing Ainsley Whitley, the well-adjusted Whitley. And it's going to be interesting to see where they take it. I'm a huge fan of Bellamy Young, who plays his mother, Jessica Whitley, and she is on her A game as Jessica. So it's been a really fun show. I love a good mix of action, comedy, and drama, which the show has in spades, but it's also a bit of a psychological thriller as well. So if you're interested into that type of thing, you guys should check out Prodigal Son. It is going to be returning for season 2 sometime this month, but you guys can check it out on Fox, I believe. And that's it.
We did it.
We did. It took us 2 hours, dear God, but we
Oh
did it.
goodness.
But we did it. We managed to succeed. Thank you guys for joining us for episode 2 of this year in review. Tomorrow we will be discussing our favorite actors of 2020.
Yes.
Yay!
So thanks for spending a couple hours with us. Thank you, Crown Digital, Brandon, and I for putting us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Demi, thank you for editing and vibing with me on the superhero shows because
Ivan.
that's who I go to for that. Colin, thank you for nothing. You're not here. Gabby, thank you for all the streaming passwords you've let me use this year because
Oh God.
that's quite a few of the shows I watch.
You're welcome. honey.
Audience, if you guys want to talk to us about our favorite shows and yours, you can find us on the medias, Twitter, y'all_different, Instagram and Tumblr, Creative Differences Podcast, or Facebook.com/Creative Differences PC. If you want to talk to me about how dope Ozark is, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at a king named Simba.
If you want to talk to me about Mythic Quest Raven's Banquet, I shall be on the Instagrams at Stegosaurus.
Hey guys, all I do is watch TV and movies. So if you guys want to talk to me, you guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Dreamy Films. Dreamy is spelled Dreemi. Thanks again for joining us. And once again, Happy New Year.
You can find Colin
And
at
you can find Colin on Twitter at Scared and Horny.
Nicely done.
Thank you. It's been different. Happy New Year.